All right, folks, welcome to another episode of Ethos of a Warrior, presented by the Warrior Leader Academy. Today, I am joined by Gary Slyman, Director of Leadership Performance for the Academy. Gary, awesome for you to join us today.
Great to be here, John. Thanks for the opportunity.
You are an executive coach. So what is an executive coach?
The easiest analogy is if you take it with sports coaches. Most folks understand what sports coaches are. When you think about a sports coach, what do they do for you? Help you play better. I help you play better in your professional world. How can you get better? Give you the feedback, help you set the goals so you become better at what you are doing professionally. That's really an executive coach in as simple as terms as I could put it.
You're able to help kind of anybody across a very broad spectrum. You're not just limited to senior executives in an office, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I have coached students from the middle school all the way through senior executives and folks that are retired. There's a whole spectrum. Who can use coaching? I mean, think about it. I need coaching to help me choose a college. I need coaching to help me work better as a leader at my first entry-level job. Whether you're a blue-collar worker, white-collar worker, at every level, a coach can help you play better. If you want to play better, you're going to be a good client and you're going to get some good value from a coach. So entire spectrum from the student level all the way up to senior executives and folks that are thinking about retiring, figuring out what's the next steps for them.
So at any transition point in life, it could be helpful to have a coach on your side that's been there, done that, and can help guide you through.
Exactly. And you talk about transition. Sometimes folks will think there has to be a transition to have this. We're in constant transition because if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. You always want to be moving in a positive direction. You can use a coach at any time. I have a coach. I'm a coach and I work with coaches in different areas.
One thing I've noticed with COVID is people are getting stressed out and they're getting burned out. Have you experienced any of that with your clients or with yourself? I
have. With a number of clients, they've come to me directly and said, I need some help. I need to leave this job. I need to transition. It's killing me. I can't stand it. So then as you start working through the process, these folks are really burned out. So yes, I have seen burnout and I have coached people through burnout. I've also seen it at the leader level. Hey, my team, I'm really having a tough time. They're not performing where they were before. Folks are not engaged the way they need to be. So you can see it from the leader level as well, looking at their team and saying, wow, what can I do with my team? And realizing they're part of the problem. They're doing things to burn them out. So yes, I've seen it with clients who are coming to me who need personal help and leaders who need help with their teams.
What are some problems with being burned out? What are some ways that might affect not only their job, but their personal life?
The World Health Organization has actually defined what burnout is in the workplace. There's really three symptoms of it. It is a feeling of exhaustion. You're just depleted. You're exhausted. So think about folks when they talk about being burned out, or if you've been there, you're exhausted, negative feelings towards work. You're cynical towards it, really resenting your job. You're feeling some real negative separation. And the last one is you're just not as effective as you have been before. It's a lack of professional efficacy. And this is related directly to the workplace. Those are the symptoms that you're feeling. Exhausted. Driving up to work and you put your hands on the steering wheel after you shut your car off and going, man, I just don't want to go in there today. And just feeling like I'm just not as effective as I used to be. Those are the three symptoms defined by the World Health Organization.
I'm sure a lot of people can relate, right? Trying to psych themselves up to get through the day, white knuckling it to get into work, dreading what they have to do. Say I'm one of those people. How could you help me work through those issues?
Okay, let's see. What is it that's driving you crazy? Because the research has shown there are really 6 main drivers, and the drivers are the workload that you have, your lack of control of work, schedule, workload, lack of rewards, recognition, lack of community support, conflicting values where you're in conflict with your boss is saying one thing, you're saying another thing, or your organization. They'll say family time is important, but the audio doesn't match the video. They're telling you they need you at all times, and lack of meaning in one's work. Those are the drivers. So I'll dig into and we'll go through discovery, find out what's going on with the individual. And many times, workload, always the number one. Workload and lack of control are usually the top 2. Okay, what can we do? So I'll work one-on-one with an individual. Let's see what we can do to work this out. And it's interesting because a lot of people want to first blame work, blame the boss, blame the organization. But sometimes they're part of the cause. So I'll give you an example. COVID, people are home and now they're spending all this time. So they feel like they're always on, never putting boundaries around work. And they're saying, oh, I'm always on. They're giving me so much. I don't have control of my time. Well, let's talk about that. I helped them define some boundaries. And so there's one client I was working with. She was really, really struggling because kids at home during COVID really didn't have boundaries and was always answering emails. Once she put some boundaries around her day and said, hey, I'm not available after 6:30. That's it. I'm done. I'm not answering anything. I'm not going to look at my email again until 8 o'clock. That helped. So we look at what are the drivers, and then once we define what is it that's causing the most pain, we'll attack that one first, and then see what the other ones are and what they can control. So many times they can control it themselves and maybe put some boundaries around it. That's how I'll approach it.
Protecting your time. Time is one of those things that is a finite resource, and it's very important that you have boundaries. I know people love to check their cell phones, check their messages, be always available. And you're saying that's the wrong method, right?
So you have to put boundaries around things. Think how we protect our money. Savings account, investments accounts are so worried about losing things. Well, what's the most precious asset that we have?
Time.
Time. But how often will we allow our time to be squandered by our phones, email, get on social media? We'll let people squander our time. So if you can put boundaries around those things and get control, you're feeling like you're in control. This is my schedule. I'm not going to answer my phone after 6:30. I'm not going to respond to you. That's the two biggest: workload, boundaries, and put some control around it. Really helps people get moving in the right direction.
You said you've also helped teams. If you're going into a company, working with a group of people, how would you tailor that versus working one-on-one?
Right. In that case, the team, so someone might be looking at the team, or a team member might come to me. Usually the leader will come and say, hey, my team is just not as effective. Sales teams, marketing teams, software teams, how can we get better? Well, now, as opposed to the individual being the client, the team is the client. And it's really to work on the relationships and the norms of how that team operates. Let's talk about what the issues are. What's really driving this team? Why are people feeling the way they're feeling? And I'll look at those same 6 things. What's the workload, level of control, rewards, recognition, support, values, lack of meaning? We'll look at those things. And really what I found is when you could define the real purpose of this team, when they can all say, this is the purpose of the team. Once we get that, once we put some boundaries around the level of the workload, time workload, and establish some serious norms, here's the norms that we're going to operate under, and here's how we're going to hold each other accountable. That's where I've seen some real success. And again, that takes time. You work with a senior team and you try and put some norms of behavior in with some senior folks. That can be pretty challenging. Holding themselves accountable is one of the other areas. How are they going to hold themselves accountable? I'll work with the team. And it's one of those cases where I work with the team. And if people try to peel off and hit me one-on-one, hey, I really need to talk about this is what's going on with John. Let's go bring that back to the team. What's the issue? We're going to deal with this as a team, not as individuals of the team. The team is really the client there.
So you talk about kind of how long it takes. So expectation management. This isn't something I can sit down with you in 30 minutes and come up with a great solution, right? I'm probably going to have to work with you for a little bit. So how long should I expect to work with a coach to really work through these issues?
When I work with someone, I take a minimum of 4 sessions. And that's not saying we can get it done in 4 sessions. They can start seeing the progress. Coaching is really about behavior change. It's the ability for you to change something. And it's usually your behavior. It's going to take some time. So 6 months is usually a pretty good time frame. I like a rhythm of 2 to 3 weeks. 3 weeks has seemed to be a sweet spot. Set some goals, take some actions. I'm going to work on some behavior changes, move forward. 3 weeks gives you some time to do something. Okay, what's working, what's not working, more goals, what worked, what didn't work. Let's go, let's move forward. Again, another 3 weeks. So if you think about 6 months, that's probably going to get you about 7, 8, maybe 9 sessions, depending upon the frequency. So 6 months is what I would recommend as a good place to start.
Thinking about some occupations that might have more significant burnout than others. The first thing that comes to mind is healthcare. My wife is a nurse. They work 12-hour shifts. She works night commute, high op tempo at her job, high stress level. Do you think the healthcare industry is experiencing burnout right now?
Oh, absolutely. And I've done a whole bunch of research in that area, looking at the healthcare folks. And just this weekend, I was talking to someone in the healthcare profession. And she's saying, I just don't want to go back to work anymore. I think I'm going to retire early because it's driving me crazy because of the 12-hour shifts, sometimes double shifts. Sometimes folks will get 16-hour shifts, and it's workload demands and lack of recognition. This person's telling me I'm eating my lunch, standing up in another room, and my boss comes to me and says, hey, who's doing what? Holy smokes. You talk about lack of recognition or lack of control, trying to pull someone out of their lunch half hour to get back and get something done. So lots of push, personnel reductions, high level of workload, and in some cases, lack of reward recognition because people are just busting their butt to get things done. And okay, let's keep going, is all they're worried about are the numbers that they're going through so they can keep the throughput. So that profession is having a really tough time at the individual level, and I'd say the leadership recognizing what's going on with their teams.
You bring up one point on recognition, and I think really in any industry, as a leader, taking the time to appreciate your employees. Everyone's always focused on the customer and the end product. So if I'm working in a hospital, maybe the churn of getting people in, people out, I think we lose sight of the employees, the ones that they're getting after it and doing it. So what would you tell a leader if they know their team's kind of stressing out to help them get better at recognizing it and showing a little bit of appreciation?
They need feedback. And if they're looking for it, the feedback is there. I just gave you the 6 things: level of workload, lack of control, rewards recognition, community support, conflicting values, and lack of meaning in one's work. Just go around and ask some questions. You could easily, very informally, figure out how you feeling about the workload you're having here. Tell me about hours, some input on their hours. What can they change? How can they affect their own schedule? How can they choose hours, time off, so they get some time off? Those kinds of things. Rewards recognition. Lunch comes and everyone's treated to lunch once a month or something. Hey, these people are really working hard. The leaders can take a look, get the feedback, and a simple survey just based around the drivers, the 6 drivers, is one way to get that feedback. That could be asking questions. It could be a formal survey. It could be an informal survey. But ask around them. You think about every one of those things I'm talking about. They're all controllable through leadership. What's the culture of my organization? Ask for it. You're going to get it. You're going to get the feedback if you ask for it, or find a good way to get that feedback.
As long as you're open to receive feedback. So say I'm a CEO of a hospital. I reach out to Gary. Would you help me kind of figure out how to build a survey that I could use, or questions to ask, or items that I could then use to help survey to gather data?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll tell her the whole thing. It's not just pull it off the shelf and let's just plug it into your organization. It's, what do you need? What does your organization look like? And is there a place that we want to prototype and test to see what works best for your organization? So then if you want to grow and expand it, let's expand it. But let's see what works. Let's test it and see what's going to work to move your organization forward in the direction that you want to go. It will be tailored and help you with those kind of questions to figure out where are your people? Where is your organization?
Kind of like that consultant, that outside eye, helping them see themselves. And like you said, you're going to be able to create a tailored package unique to their issues, because each hospital is different, each person is different, each team is different. You're going to take that whole assessment. Do you ever notice that you pull out things that they might not have been coming to you? Maybe they came to you for burnout, and all of a sudden you find other things that you can help them with as well.
That always happens. Sometimes they're symptoms of a deeper problem. And so what might be the deeper problem? People are burned out. It might be lack of control by the way the whole health organization is being run. There's all kinds of other factors. The burnout might just be symptoms of something else that's underlying that needs to be fixed. So when it comes out, when you start asking questions, you'd be surprised. And, many times I'll ask a leader, you want to get a 360 evaluation? They're like, not sure. So look, everyone else knows the answers except you. Don't want to know what they know. They're already thinking about feedback they want to give you, but they're holding back. So in an organization, get the correct feedback so you can work on it and build a program around getting it better.
Being open to receiving the feedback, having the wherewithal to ask the questions, to gather the data, and then sitting down with a coach to really sift through it. If I send a survey out and I've got results, I might not know how to interpret it. So sitting down with Gary, you'll be able to really help me understand what it is. Maybe you pull out some common threads. Maybe you're able to pull out some responses and even translate the results.
Exactly. And I do throw in one-on-one coaching. I'll do personal assessments and look at what are the things, how do you show up? What are things that can derail you? What are your tendencies you have that could derail your career? What are your motivations? So that's just one of the assessments that I work with to help them understand themselves. And I'm working with some senior clients. There's one client I've been working with for 4 months where we have just worked with his assessment and what that means and how he leads his organization of several thousand people and what that means for him. Understanding yourself. What are your behaviors? What do I need to change to be more effective in what I'm doing?
For those that are listening or watching the show, I highly encourage you go to warrior-leader.com. You can find out Gary. He's got an awesome program. He is ready to help. Like you said at the beginning, everything from A to Z. He can help you find yourself, help you identify those issues, and can help you work through to improve yourself. Gary, is there anything you want to add before we close out?
Yeah, I'd add, as I think about how I work with organizations, we go in and we figure out, okay, what are you looking for? What do you want to accomplish? What are ways that we can do it? How can we get the data? Now, once we get the data, how can we act on the data and what can we put in place? It might be one-on-one coaching. It might be group coaching, coach a cohort of individuals that are working on themselves individually, which really builds some great synergy within teams, or team coaching, where the team is the client, where we're working on that team and their performance. So those are 3 ways right off the top of my head. And we have a lot of assets to pull in, other coaches, other expertise, other assessments to help you out.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time out. For those that are out there struggling with whatever you're struggling with, I highly encourage you to reach out to us. And like Gary said, we've got a very diverse team, so we can definitely help you get from point A to point B in a quicker, smoother, more efficient manner. Well, thank you, Gary, for joining me. And for those that are watching, hope to see you next time. Remember to stay hungry, stay true.
Thanks, John.